powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Looking back at the Eagles' dominant win over the Niners. Adam Caplan is in the house today to talk about it. What did he see? Overall, the Eagles knock out not one, but two quarterbacks in the game. The Niners just basically lost their composure in the game. We'll go through it all. We'll get Adam's take here in just a second here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike and Ryan, we're live at the Gallery Bar Book and Games. It's funny because a lot of people, look at this game and say, wow, the Eagles did their job. They knocked two quarterbacks out of the game. That's the goal. You have this physical, aggressive defense, and you get this quarterback to a point where he gets – and McMullen brought up an interesting point about the lack of awareness from the quarterbacks. And then once he saw the lack of awareness in the quarterback that caused him to get sacked and turn the ball over, that's when he felt, all right, this offense probably isn't going to have much, even with Purdy. So let's get Adam Caplan in here. They lose Purdy early, then they lose Johnson. They have to go back to Purdy overall. Let's kind of take a look at how the 49ers quarterback situation played into this game.
All right, Mike, good to be with you guys. So, look, Purdy, as you know, gets hurt. It's on the second series of the game, and he goes out with what looks to be a significant right elbow injury, and that changed the course of the game. They were never the same. Josh Johnson, don't forget, was signed off the Broncos practice squad, and only because of the guys that they looked at, they thought he could come in and because he knew the offense. He played for Kyle Shanahan before with the 49ers previously, so that's the only way they can do it. The hope is obviously that you don't have to play him, but they had to play him. He had one nice throw, but other than that, he was pretty inept. And he got knocked out with concussion. And I just was in most teams, as you know, guys don't dress three quarterbacks anymore. It's very rare. You only do it. You only dress three when one of them is hurt or one of them dealing with a lingering injury where you want to be careful in case something happens in terms of a setback. So they were stuck. I mean, look, when you have to go to third string quarterback in a game, you're pretty much done. I mean, that's just the way it is. There aren't a lot of A.J. Feely stories, as we know. In the history of the National Football League, when you go to a third string and that guy actually plays well. But, the injury kind of changed the course of the game, and the Niners could never recover. And it was kind of a weird game where the Eagles scored 31 points, but it wasn't as though that they put up massive numbers.
Right. Now, a lot of people would say, obviously the quarterback went out. It changed the complexion of the game. They couldn't throw the ball. But after watching the game and how it did unfold, I thought the Eagles were just the more physical team. So I look back and I thought the Eagles would win the game pretty handily to begin with, mainly because they were limited at the most important position on the field, but they just could not stop Philadelphia. The Eagles just physically beat them up. I felt like that was something that gets undersold because of the Purdy injury, was that the Eagles just implored physical dominance over that team.
Yeah, and with the run game too. I mean, they had several nice runs in the game. It was one of these things. Gainwell had a really good game. Don't let the numbers fool you. He had a bunch of explosive runs, is what coaches call them. He had two really nice catches, one 17-yarder. Sanders ran the ball well with authority. He got those grinded-out carries. He scored two touchdowns. Even Scott scored again. It's really remarkable to me what he's done off the bench. So they have to feel pretty good about that when they face the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, because the Chiefs' D-line could actually dominate. There's no question. They've got a great pass rush. But overall, the Eagles have to feel pretty good about it. I do wonder what would have happened if Purdy could have finished the game, not gotten hurt. But Kyle Shanahan's got to look at. I mean, he explained it. He talked about when there's play action, you're going to have a tight end on that side protecting the quarterback, and that's fine. But to have Reddick face Tyler Kroft is obviously a bad mismatch, and one that Purdy was just not seeing pre-snap. Unfortunately, he didn't have the awareness as you were talking about. And then, but the big story is, Mike, you touched on it in passing, and it's something we talked about on our post-game show. The Niners lost the games in a big way because of their composure. They just didn't handle it. The 11 penalties, so many bad ones. I get it. One or two of them you could question. See, the problem is with the roughing the punter. Yeah, Jack Stoll pushed the guy. It's not like the refs could go back to instant replay. They're not allowed to do that on that play. So They couldn't get that done, and I just thought overall. And then the ridiculous one was when Dre Greenlaw punched. I think it was Gainwell after the play. He must have taken 4 or 5 shots. I don't know why he didn't get thrown out of the game. That was ridiculous. So yeah, they completely lost. You saw Shanahan was very upset, and they just didn't have it. And when you don't have it and you lose your composure in the link, you're done.
Yeah, and real quick, you just talked about composure, and that's where, to me, the physicality of the Eagles and their physical dominance that they employed caused them to lose their cool and composure. So that's all encompassing as to why this game rattled out of control, is because San Francisco realized we are in a fight that we're not really prepared for, and it caused them to get penalized because they were not physically ready for what they saw.
And it's funny because it's usually the Niners who are doing that to other teams because their front is so good and dominant. And Nick Bosa was really handled very well with Lane Johnson in terms of pass pro in the first half. I believe, from what we understand, that Nick Bosa lined up on almost every snap over Johnson in the first half, and then he started flipping on the second half. And Johnson held up remarkably well. Yeah, the Niners got him on some runs where they shut their run down, but the Eagles had several nice runs in the game. They have to feel pretty good about that. And the amazing thing is, Mike, only 49 pass attempts in 2 games and 2 blowouts. That's a number you could certainly live with.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some fans or whoever exists out there that may be looking at that as a negative. I think that's a little bit off base, but certainly want more of your insight in regards to that, Adam Caplan. The Eagles, heavy focus on the ground, 2 straight playoff games. Jalen, a couple missed throws, some opportunities deep to A.J. Brown. But, nonetheless, this is the playoffs, man. Like for me, I said this earlier, there's one stat that matters, and it's, did you win? And the answer is they're finding ways to get it done. But, obviously tell us what you've seen.
Yeah, the only thing, Ryan, that you get concerned about, this is 2 games now where Hurts is – this game, there's no question, that's a touchdown. Brown beat the defensive back.
Mm-hmm.
It absolutely was a touchdown. They overthrew him. And I'll tell you what, though, the thing is, his shoulder is fine in terms of strength. That's not the problem. It's just the accuracy and getting enough reps in. Maybe that's something that has to improve. But the good thing is now with another bye, they could get him more rested and obviously get Lane Johnson rested, who he certainly discussed this after the game, what he's been kind of dealing with, and I give him credit. He's doing something that's incredible. And he'll have his hands full. The Chiefs have a phenomenal front. But, again, he'll be able to rehab that and get stronger during this week.
Hassan Reddick has become just an absolute – not become. He is an absolute stud and an absolute freak of nature in the best, most complimentary way possible, Adam Caplan. But just speak to the success that he's had and that he will inevitably continue to have, and just the defense, of course, overall, and what they've been able to do.
Yeah, this is the front that he needs to play. And he needs to play in an odd-man front, standing up. This is really a 34 front with 2 linebackers in the box, and he's one of them, and it absolutely works. And this is a defense that the Cardinals should have put him in. They started his career at inside linebacker, which is absurd for a first-round pick pass rusher. They didn't figure out till his last year. The Panthers liked him. They just had a bunch of players who wanted to extend, so they let him walk. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was not even offered anything to stay. And he got a really good deal, obviously. And, the first year, guys, you could say that he's kind of outplayed the deal in a way. And I believe he's got a sack in at least 10 games this season, which is remarkable. So many pressures. That's the thing. Teams grade players on pressures, not total sacks. Sacks are great. Those are individual plays, but it's what did you do play after play after play. And he just is relentless. And the thing about him is we don't talk about the sport much, but we should. It's important. There's one team that's really stopped him. That's the thing. It's not like, okay, well, we're going to keep an extra tight end there and we're going to shut this down. No one's been able to really do that. And I'll tell you what, we'll talk more about this next week. Orlando Brown Jr., their left tackle, not the most athletic guy, more of a power player. That might be a side, because the Eagles would do this. They'll flip Sweat and Reddick during game. That's something they probably would do.
Avonte Maddox came back. Give us some insight on how he kind of was factored back into the defense. Obviously, they didn't throw the ball all that much, but getting him back, just adding to the defense. But we were kind of wondering how they were going to use him.
He looked great. I mean, now he didn't play very much, but they probably didn't need him. It's probably a combination of because of the way the game went, because they got up big early, kind of like the game before, but he didn't play in that one. And the way I understand it is Friday kind of told him that he was ready to go and would start, or he'd play early in the game. In fact, what happened is he ran with the starters. They call starters a nickel. They call a nickel corner a starter. And he passed all the tests. But you don't really know until you go out there and you have to make physical plays. And he knifed in against the run. He just did a really good job. That's a really good sign coming off of that procedure, which he had, I think, a month ago or so. So that's a great sign. He's another guy will be able to take it easier this week. Now, teams typically, by the way, they almost always practice during the bye week, usually 1 or 2, probably 2 days like the Eagles did the last time leading up to the Giants game. And that's a good time to have a bye, man, because some of these guys, it's such a long season. Some of these guys definitely need a little bit of rest.
Yeah, and he'll be a big factor, I would imagine, against this Chiefs offense, which we'll obviously dig deeper into as we get closer. Give us some thoughts on the defense against the run, because obviously you know they're running almost every single play, and yet San Francisco still had a little bit of success, especially early in the game before the Purdy injury. Actually, no, I would say more when Josh Johnson ran that drive that they ended up scoring on.
Yeah, the only one that was concerning was an incredible run by McCaffrey for the touchdown and making a bunch of unblocked defenders miss. Epps was the first guy. That's just a great play. They had some runs where you go, okay, that could have been better. They just have to be a little bit tighter against the run. That's it. Like the week before against the Giants. Well, the Giants, when the Eagles were blowing them out, got some yardage, but those are what we call empty yards. Now, the Chiefs, by the way, don't run the ball particularly well. Pacheco's more of a power back, you might remember from Rutgers. He's their lead back. You're going to see him. Now, they're hopeful that Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be able to come off IR. He's been practicing, but he was not ready yet. No, they had 3 receivers get injured in that game. We should probably mention that, Mike, because they're a heavy 11 personnel team, 3 receivers. And that's why they need Maddox to be as healthy as possible. But they had 3 guys get hurt. In fact, they ended the game with Marquez Valdez-Scaling against the Bengals and rookie Sky Moore that they ran out of receivers.
Yeah, well, by the way, Pacheco played quarterback at Vineland. Maybe if they knock 2 more quarterbacks out, they would at least have an option of a guy who's played the position before, unlike San Francisco yesterday, which obviously had to go back to Brock Purdy. And 31-7, that's the score, and the Eagles are going to Super Bowl 57. Inside the Birds podcast is out with the reaction. They'll have plenty more this week on the Inside the Birds podcast on their platforms. Check that out. And, of course, during football at 4 here, we have a little different schedule for you this week. Adam's hitting for Mosher today. I think Mosher is, tomorrow? I can't remember what the schedule is.
Yes, he's in Tuesday. Yes, he's in Tuesday, Wednesday. I just got to Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl, so get the fill-in for me. Yeah, and I'll be
real
back
quick on that, Adam. That's an interesting thing is that, you're in the Super Bowl, and yet your off-season, a lot of these teams' off-seasons are going on around you and having to get ready for the number 10 overall pick. That's a challenge when you're in this position.
Yeah, no doubt about it. In fact, it's interesting. So, a lot of NFL people on my plane, a couple Giants coaches. In fact, saw Wink Martindale, who interviewed for the Colts job. I saw Mike Kafka, who interviewed for a couple jobs. They're down here wearing the Giants garb. It is interesting to see what happens with those guys. But, yeah, no doubt about it. And, by the way, this is my 22nd year here. My first Senior Bowl, 2002, Brian Westbrook from Villanova was part of that group here.
Wow, how about that? All right, Adam Caplan in Mobile. He'll be back later on in the week. And, of course, more football at 4 right here on the Sports Pass live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Adam, appreciate it, bud.
All right, guys, thank you.